It's 7 o'clock. Welcome, everybody, to the Together 2020 Disability History Month Festival. This year has the theme of making history, and today's event is no different. I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping and then I'm going to hand straight over to Ruth Mariner from Gestalt Arts. So, I'm Ju Gosling. I'm Artistic Director of Together 2012. I'm a white woman with pale olive skin, green eyes behind black plastic glasses. I have black wrist braces and silver coloured jewellery. I've got a red pound shop pork pie hat on as it's Christmas, and underneath that, you probably can't see, but I've got a hennaed self styled corona crop, and I have, well, actually, I'm not sure what kind of shirt it is, apart from the fact that, like most of them, it came from the pound shop. But I have a multicoloured, patterned coloured silk shirt. Behind me in the background, against a grey silver curtain, you can see part of our graffiti banner that says Together 2012, and also a sort of miniature Christmas tree that runs through rainbow colours. And I've also got a little table with a can of drink and a phone. I just need to let you know this is best viewed in Zoom on a laptop or a PC. This is how you will be able to see the British Sign Language interpreter, Chris Burrow. Unfortunately, if you're using a mobile or a tablet, you will have to wait for the recording to be able to see the BSL. This is just a limitation, unfortunately, in Zoom. If you wish to use the closed captions, go to the bottom of the screen and click CC. And the closed captions are there both on Zoom and on YouTube. So I'm about to hand over to Ruth Mariner from Gestalt Arts. The final thing I wanted to say is Ruth will be asking for feedback through this session. There's a Q&A button if you're on Zoom, and if you're on YouTube, then please do use the live chat. But welcome, Ruth.
Hi, thank you so much, Ju, and thank you for your excellent introduction. Yeah, I'm Ruth Mariner from Gestalt Arts, and I have brown hair, a fringe that I've had since I was 5 years old, and I am wearing a bright yellow top in a very plain looking apartment because I'm currently just in Germany and not in my usual house. Really wonderful to have everybody here today. I'm the writer and director for the project, as well as being the kind of company coordinator. And I just want to introduce my team before I kind of give a bit of a background about the project. So should I pick people? Shall I pick Bethan first, if you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, my name's Bethan Langford. I am a operatic mezzo-soprano, and I suppose this piece, we'll go into it, but this piece was inspired by my experiences as a visually impaired opera singer. I also have a fringe, very proud of my fringe. I'm brunette, I'm Caucasian, and I'm currently in my parents' spare bedroom because I'm staying at their house at the moment. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you. Laura.
Hi, thank you so much, Ruth, for passing over to me. My name is Laura, and I'm the composer for the project. I'm a white woman in my 30s. I have very short hair and I don't have a fringe. Instead, I have a rather red, messy quiff pulled to one side that's getting longer and longer as I start not being able to have a haircut due to the times. So it's gradually beginning to look like a ski slope, I think, actually. I also have gigantic black framed round glasses, which are a little bit cartoonish, you might say. And I also have an excessively sparkly nose ring as well. And behind me, I have my piano, which is topped by several houseplants that have become my new hobby. So that's me.
Oh, sorry. Shall we have Chloe? Oh, Chloe, I can't hear you. You're on mute.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I was trying to find my way off mute there. Hello, I'm Chloe Clark. I'm an actor and audio description consultant, and I specialise in creative integrated audio description. I play the sort of narrator role in this piece, and was thrilled to be brought on board by Ruth and Bethan. It's been wonderful to work with them. I have very frizzy at the moment, wavy, very long, dark and slightly grey hair, and I'm wearing a very snuggly woolen polo neck top, and you might be able to see the top symbols of my drum kit behind me, which are currently covered in dust because I have not practiced for quite a long time.
Thank you. And Ruth Sullivan.
Hi everyone, I'm the other Ruth on the project. I'm a Foley artist, generally working in film and TV, but also in theatre. And I'm a white woman. I have short-ish brown hair in need of a cut with natural highlights of grey. Quite proud of them actually. And I also wear glasses. I have a slightly smaller sparkly nose ring than Laura's, and at the moment I'm very happy that the screen only shows some books in my flat and not the fact that I arrived home after 2 months away yesterday. So basically my suitcase and various items are strewn across the floor at the moment.
Very nice. I can also spy a Dairy Milk advent calendar in the background. Yes. I'm enjoying.
I get it every year from my uncle and aunt.
Oh, that's great. Okay, fabulous. Okay, brilliant. So that is everybody. And so what I'm going to do now is just kind of facilitate a little bit of background on the project and how it started. So this project actually started in 2018 at the National Opera Studio. And I actually want to just give that to Bethan to explain a bit more about, actually that links better if Bethan, you explain it, if you want to explain about your experience at the Opera Studio.
Yeah, so the National Opera Studio is, I would say it's kind of a professional development course for young opera singers, which was that 2018, Ruth? That was a while ago. So I was attending that year, and it happened to be the 40th anniversary of the Opera Studio. And to celebrate that, they decided to do a project called 1240, which was there's 12 young artists, 12 singers in the studio, and we were each given a set of composers and librettists, who are like opera writers, to create our own aria, our own piece that represented us or represented our personal story or like a viewpoint or basically anything that we felt strongly about. So I met with Ruth and she was my allocated writer, and we had a bit of a kind of discussion about what things I felt passionate about, or I had to give lots of ideas about my life and kind of little stories and thoughts. And I gave a load of stuff, and then I was a bit nervous, but the thing that kept coming back to me and I kept thinking about was my visual impairment. And it's something that for many years I haven't really felt confident in talking about. As an opera singer, I never would often be open about the fact that I had a disability in the industry, and I often kind of felt embarrassed or I got upset talking about it. So I kind of thought this could be an opportunity for me to actually find inspiration from it and empowerment and kind of talk about it in a really positive way. So I spoke to Ruth about it, and she really picked up on this and said, yeah, this is really interesting, so we'll try and make a positive kind of metaphor for this. And she came up with the idea of evolution through the progression of a whale, so an animal who is a land animal who evolves and learns and changes to become what they are kind of supposed to be in the end, which is the whale. And it was generally a metaphor about the acceptance of others, the acceptance of who I am, and kind of how disability looks in society, I suppose, and kind of how it's kind of dealt with and accepted. And we came up with this aria, which I was really proud of, and it got great feedback. And through it, I got a couple of jobs, so we knew it was a good thing. So we thought, oh, this could be something we could develop. And so Ruth kind of had the idea of like developing it into a full-blown piece, which is kind of where we're at now.
Thank you so much, Bethan. Yeah, just to kind of recap, I think it was really wonderful at the beginning of that process talking to you about your experiences. And, you know, we were searching for quite a while for what we wanted, what we felt would be a good source material. And I really felt that for you, your whole tone and manner changed when you started talking about this issue, and was clearly something that you were very impassioned about and had a great desire to use your experience to help others, which was also really inspiring. So yeah, so the original aria is actually taken from the moment where Indus, who's the main character, becomes a whale. And yeah, that does seem like an unlikely metaphor, but we actually based it in kind of fact. So I've got this book here I can show everybody. Because whales did used to be land animals. They were these kind of pig-type deer creatures that lived in now what's India, in Kashmir, and gradually, through quite a slow process, they gradually went back into the sea. And it started because they had, some animals had heavier legs than other animals, and they would go into the river to hide from prey, and from that came their slow evolution. And so we've kind of created a magic realist version where we take that fact, but we explore it in quite a kind of abstracted way, where we're just talking about one land animal who then, within the scope of their own life, decides to leave the land and become a whale because they feel that's their true calling. And we were looking at this, in relation to exactly what Bethan said, but also, I guess, a wider frame is the social model of disability and the fact that this mammal would feel that they're better suited to the water, and it's them deciding that they want to change their environment and they are more suited to one environment than another. So that's kind of the origin. So Josh, would it be okay just to play a little bit of the aria? Now, the original aria was, as we've said, written by me. It was directed by an amazing director called David Sulkin. And it was also composed by Cameron Dodds, and this was part of a performance in 2018. So if we just play a little clip of that, is that okay, Josh? Well, we just saw it and then it went away again.
The stage is dark, and we're back quite a long way in time.
Sorry, that's
the wrong audio.
on Zoom. 1 second. It gets confused sometimes if you have two videos open and it plays the wrong one.
Okay, don't worry.
Apologies, this should be.
Thank you, brilliant. Okay, so as we just saw, that's Bethan performing her own character of the whale, and it came with different kind of vocal techniques that Bethan elaborated on. So the question after this was like, how do we turn this into a fully staged work? And of course, dealing with this issue of visual impairment, then I mean, I had no experience of that at that stage. So we started to research about how we may be able to turn it into something that was about this issue, and of course was inclusive to that audience. So after that, we then kind of took the project to another composer, Laura Bowler, who's here with us. And I just wondered, Laura, whether you could talk a little bit about your kind of input and your kind of vision for turning this into a kind of full piece.
Yeah, no, of course. Thanks, Ruth. Yeah, so Ruth originally approached me about being part of the project, and she also showed me the original aria that Cameron, the composer that they'd worked with on the original showing, she showed me that video, and obviously I saw that it was a beautiful idea, and also that Bethan is the most incredible performer and singer, which was incredibly exciting for me as a composer. And then following from that, Ruth and I had many conversations about where this project might go, and those conversations are still kind of happening, and what's going to develop and how the form of this piece is going to work. But one of the things that we were keen on is that this project will be able to kind of be accessed by many people, so that it will be able to tour kind of nationally to many different spaces. And so it was really important to think from a composer's perspective, how can we make that possible? Because obviously if it's lots of musicians, it makes it more expensive and more difficult for it to go to as many communities as possible. So we talked about what could be possible musically, and I suggested, and you'll hear this in the video when we show you of what we've been working on, I suggested using the accordion as the instrumental background accompaniment to Bethan's voice. And the reason for that is because the accordion is such an incredibly diverse instrument. It's almost like an orchestra in one kind of package. It can do so many different things. It's got amazing different sound worlds that can be explored. And I really felt like that instrument, both because of its portability, so it was practical for the project, but also because of the many different worlds that it can evoke, would be really kind of useful and a really kind of inspiring way to explore the metaphors that are in this piece and what we're looking to create. And then one of the other aspects musically that I became fascinated by, and you will have heard this, I'm sure, in the last video, is whale song. Whale song is unbelievably fascinating. I've actually always been fascinated, particularly by humpback whale song, which is hugely complex and they sing these incredibly long, beautiful lyrical lines that actually have this amazing, skillful development of kind of musical motifs that's almost like it's been composed. And I found that fascinating. So some of the material that both you heard in that aria, but also in the video that we're going to show you, take some ideas from whale song as well. So that's one of the other aspects that I was interested in musically. And then the one other thing that I think is quite interesting to share is that when we were talking about what the different kind of formats that this piece could take if it was in a theatre space, what would be interesting for the storytelling, what would create both something for like that was accessible to many different kinds of audience members. And one of the things that I suggested to Ruth was that maybe we could explore the technique of Foley. And Foley being, I mean, I'm sure that Ruth Sullivan will correct me on my actual kind of description of it, but essentially from my perspective, it's the use of kind of objects and materials to create sounds that evoke something in the storytelling or something. But I'm sure Ruth will give a more precise description of it. I'm definitely not quite getting that. But essentially, I'd witnessed Foley work on stage in a theatre piece, and it just really inspired me, and I thought it would be a really fascinating thing to add to this project, specifically because we are very much thinking of it as a piece for obviously visually impaired audiences, and I felt like Foley art would be a brilliant way to kind of magnify the oral experience of the work. So yeah, so that gives you a little bit of insight into where the conversations that we've been having about from a sound perspective and a music perspective. Yeah, I'll pass back to Ruth.
Brilliant, thank you so much. So actually, I think what I'm just going to do is skip. I know we've a little in a pre-chat we've agreed a different order, but I think it would really follow on to talk about the Foley now. So Ruth, would it be okay for you to just talk about your role in the project?
Yes, of course, yes. And thank you, Laura. Yes, that was a perfect description, actually. I mean, generally, Foley is used, as I said earlier, in film and TV dramas. We have to recreate everything, every sound that an actor makes in a scene, from footsteps to pouring a cup of tea to fight scenes, everything. And the brilliant thing about doing Foley for theatre is that we're allowed to create sounds and use props to add to the atmosphere of something, rather than being quite as prescriptive as having to do every sound that you see. And this allows us to use props that are perhaps a bit more, dare I say it, imaginative. They might be more interesting to hear or to see even in action. And they also have to have a slightly more simple and immediate effect. So, because you can't build layers of sound, which you would do if you were working to a recorded feature film or drama. I'm just going to hold up a couple of props though, first of all, because you might recognize these. If I play them together, I'll show you and I'll explain what they are. They are coconuts. And yes, we do still use them for horses, except we don't clatter them together like that. Thank you, Monty Python. We actually use them on the ground. So I'll just put those to one side. So just to bring another prop into play, one of the wonderful things about Foley is the tactile nature of the props. And I'm hoping that I can convey a little bit of that through my laptop. And also I'm hoping that you'll be able to hear some of this. So I don't want to give too much away because you'll be watching the video in a minute, but this is something that we use. And what I love about it is that it's something incredibly synthetic. It's videotape, but it can sound like the rustle of leaves in a tree. So an atmospheric sound, but it can also give a sense of drama and purpose for maybe a character, Indus, say, walking through undergrowth. And then maybe running away from something, for example. And I'm going to demonstrate one more prop and then I'll pass back to Ruth. But this is one of my favourite things. So I can only describe this as the sea sausage. It's my own invention. And essentially it's little stones encased in a piece of nylon material. I hope that you maybe got an impression of what it is, but again, I don't want to give too much away. What I would really love is if and when we're able to bring the project to a live audience, that we'll be able to have some of the Foley props available for people to touch and play with and create the sounds themselves. Yes, okay, I'll hand back to Ruth now, the other Ruth. Thank you.
Thank you, other Ruth. Yeah, it's always really fascinating getting access to the way in which these sounds are created. So for me as a director, I was really interested in this idea because of the ways in which it can be used to represent the sounds and give context on stage and have this extra layer to the sound world. But also because, as you just see, it is like very interesting watching Ruth play with these kind of objects. So where we're at now is we are kind of currently deciding what we do, because ideally we were thinking originally we would make this into a small portable staged show, and obviously we still have the intention to do that, but COVID obviously presents problems and challenges. So what we did this summer was create instead a small video, or instead of the very end, we've got the very, very beginning of the piece. And we really used it as an experiment and kind of a playground in a way for the ways in which text and music and Foley and Bethan's narrative may intersect with live audio description as well. So Chloe, do you want to just say a little bit about your role in the project? And then I think it's about time we listen to the video, because I recognise that it's now 7:30. So Chloe.
Sure, yeah. So I came on board, I was contacted by a producer at Grey Eye who put me in contact with Ruth and Bethan, and then came on board as the actor, but also in a sort of audio description consultant capacity. And I was very fortunate that, you know, Ruth, Bethan and Laura and everyone on board were really flexible and happy to listen to suggestions and take sort of AD considerations on board. What we found, so because I came on board at this stage, and we were at this stage very much focused on creating, as everyone's said already, this sort of almost like a radio. I know we made a video, but it's very much sort of audio based performance, and how much you can convey specifically to a visually impaired audience through that format, through the use of Foley, through the use of sort of integrated audio description, and simply the storytelling and narrative that exists already. And going back to the Foley idea, something that resonated with me, because I've explored Foley in my own work as well as a visually impaired artist. I think there's something, as Foley Ruth said, so so tangible about Foley, but equally, I went to see Complicité's the encounter with a deaf friend of mine, and what I found really interesting was that she got all the visuals, obviously, but none of the sound, and said, well, it must sound very interesting. By the way, sorry, it's a binaural piece that's all based around Foley effects, basically. So you see a man telling a story, and he's using sort of snapping twigs to make a certain sound effect and doing this and that to make other sound effects. And so from a deaf perspective, it was very interesting visually, but you didn't make the connection with what the sounds were. From a blind perspective, it was interesting storytelling with sound effects, but because you couldn't see what he was doing, the Foley aspect of it actually lost interest. So what we discussed with this project was the idea of that very tactile thing and a touch tour and really engaging with the Foley objects before the show, and then being able to pick up on how they might have been used throughout the piece to sort of heighten the drama and create the sound to coincide with the narrative. We also, in terms of audio description, discussed a really good and interesting idea that Bethan and Ruth had before I came on board, was that they would include quite explicit lines of audio description. So, for example, Chloe picks up a pair of rubber gloves, just to explore playing with having explicit audio description in there and seeing how much that enhanced things. But what we discovered throughout was actually we'd rather pare it back and rely on the storytelling and see how much an audience gets, because often less is more with audio description. But it's always an intricate balance in offering enough but not offering too much. So it'll be really interesting to hear people's feedback and their thoughts on what they get from the piece, if they can really put themselves in the world easily, whether there's anything more that they would like or less. I think that would be really interesting and essential to developing the piece further. So thank you, and I hope you all enjoy experiencing it.
Yeah, brilliant. So as Chloe said, yeah, we definitely want that feedback from you. So please keep your critical hat on as you watch the video. And just to say as well, because this was obviously we did this in lockdown, so it was a very weird way of working for us. We weren't all in a room kind of together making decisions, kind of trying things twice and feeling our way through the process. We were really kind of passing the creative hat it was a bit like a relay race. So I wrote the libretto and then handed it to Laura to write the music, and we did have discussions along the way, and then we added the audio description on top, and Bethan and Ruth, so it was all very much like a kind of a relay race. It was a very unusual way of making this kind of work, which would normally be more devised. So Josh, shall we put the video on now? And just to let you know, it may be worth, if you have headphones, listening through headphones. If you don't, obviously don't worry, but if you are listening, maybe headphones are a good idea.
I will pop that up now, and I'll give people 30 seconds to grab some headphones if they have them in hand.
Cool. Actually, my headphones have unfortunately stopped connecting to my computer, so.
The stage is dark, and we're back quite a long way in time. The start of a world that's just becoming familiar. The dawn horse takes unsteady steps on newly formed hills. Grass widens and forms large plains. Mammals become dominant. This time is called Eocene. Skeins of biology twist, unfurl, and reknit over time. And almost all of the Eocene creatures will change their forms before the modern day. One of them is the Indo-Hyas. performer stands centre stage. She's taller than average, with dark brown hair, a very neat fringe, and a tail made from cassette tape.
Hi, my name's Bethan Langford, and I'm a visually impaired opera singer. This is my show, and I'm going to be performing the character of Indus, who is an Indo-Hyas.
An old tape recorder appears to be stuck to her hand.
Hi, my name's Bethan Langford, and I'm a visually impaired opera singer. This is my show, and I'm going to be performing the character of Indus, who is an Indo-Hyas. That's Chloe. She's shorter than me and is Caucasian, with long, dark, scruffy hair.
Hey!
She's wearing black trousers. She has no tail.
Bethan arches her back. Bethan bends her legs. And here she is, an Indo-Hyas. Tape recorder still attached. Plants with taut wax leaves and green stems grow thick across what is now Kashmir, India. It's hot, and the sun's rays press through the humid air. What does an Indo-Hyas do when it's hot? What we know about Indo-Hyas is what we have pieced together from fragments. On this stage, we create movements, sounds, and worlds from the space that emerges between these fragments.
Indo-Hyas are prey. They live in pairs or small herds. Chloe arches her back, bends her legs, and now here we are in the forest.
Our movements are timid, tense, quivering. Our movements pass from animal to animal, probing for danger. We scurry for fallen fruit, plant matter from danger.
Listen for any impulse. Run! Run!
And we run, hooves beat, mud flies. Piercing sun draws sweat. Stems whip, snap back. Through leaf, fern. Stems whip, snap back, hooves beat, mud flies. Zoom in. Bethan playing Indus. Running, running. Tape recorder still stuck to her hand. The tape recorder drags against tangled roots. It's stuck. Wings beat high above. Scanning. Searching.
Come on, come on.
And hooves meet sandy shore. The bird dives, finger on the tape recorder button. Bethan stands ready to leap. our bodies become weightless.
The birds close up
and come away clutching the air.
Cool. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening and watching. So we have a couple of questions that we feel would be useful in order to take us to the next stage of development. So I guess the first question I'm going to ask is from this clip and from what you've seen so far, would you be interested in coming to view or be part of the audience for the staged version? And if yes, then obviously why? I'll ask that first because we're trying to work out which direction to take it in, whether it's a digital direction or whether we're still doing this stage version. So yeah, would anyone be interested in coming to see the staged version?
So while you're all typing, you've got the Q&A box on the closed caption on the right. You can get your live chat up by going to view, which is on the top left hand of your screen, and then you can send messages by typing it back at the bottom again. In the meantime, well, of course I loved it. You know, you wouldn't be in the festival if I didn't love it, but I really, really, really loved it. I'd love to see a stage version, but I think coming out of the really intensive 4 days of the film festival, what I wondered, because for anybody who couldn't see it, there's animated text, so the script is in an animated text as well, and it just made me want to see a whole animation as well as a live performance. I'd love to see Bethan live, but I'd also love to see that as an animation. So I wasn't expecting to think that, but like I say, that's kind of where I took it in. And I have to say, in 9 years of running the film festival, we have never had anybody use operatic or even classical music really in animation. It always seems to be pop music or a particular kind of music, but we never seem to get any kind of, nothing like this ever. So I think you do quite well at the festivals as well.
I think that's something that hasn't been explored much in opera either, actually, in terms of animation. And I think that would be something really exciting to explore because, everything.
Bethan? Oh, great. Sorry, Bethan, we were just popping you up on the screen so people could see you.
Oh, thank you. I was just saying, I think that's a very rare thing in opera as well. And I actually have a colleague who at the moment is trying to do live performance with in the background like a animation. And that's something as well that we haven't thought about, but it could be another idea, because I think you're right. I think when the screen came up, I thought it's such a magical kind of odd concept that actually some kind of animation might be quite interesting because it is so otherworldly.
Well, it's certainly a way of it. I mean, I think the first thing I thought, of course, was it's just something that you can, in a drawing, you can go anywhere without the constraints posed by COVID and Zoom. But yes, I mean, I think you could also explore kind of wild kind of, you could develop the character through it as well. So we've had a few responses coming up. Susan C says, yes, definitely. I would like to see both the staged version and also a digital version. They would be different experiences. Alison Marchant, who's a mid-career installation artist who runs our clubs program, says yes, she would, but she also really liked that with just the use of text, monologue, and sound. Nobody's using our Q&A box yet. I don't know, Josh, this might be asking too much, but we'll both try and see if we can get any responses up from YouTube. But certainly everybody so far wants to see you carrying on, but yes, widening things out even further. What's the next question, Ruth? Oh, You need to take your microphone
I
off mute.
forgot to take my microphone off, sorry. Okay, so we've kind of answered that. So we were going to ask as well whether it would be effective as a radio play. So we're kind of, people so far are saying that both versions are different but both interesting. I guess one thing would be really useful to know is with the audio description, was there too much or not enough? And, you know, where are those places where there may have been too much going on?
I didn't find it too much at all. Oh, so we've got nothing on YouTube at the moment. That saves me having to check. Thank you very much indeed. Josh got much quicker fingers than me. Well, for me, and of course, as we were saying at the beginning, and particularly from Chloe, it's very subjective, isn't it? I think it stimulated an awful lot of thinking, which for me, as somebody who works in visuals and sound, made me come up with the sort of thinking of the animation. It didn't make me need to see a human being. And I think that's interesting, because some things you just think, no, this just isn't enough. I need to be able to see it. It was more about kind of, oh, it'd be interesting to see another representation of this text, this monologue. So for me, I thought it worked really, really well. So Susan C is saying that she liked it. She felt she had different options for engaging with the work. And it sounded like that was quite important to you at the beginning, Ruth, for people to have different ways of experiencing it.
Yeah, definitely, because we're absolutely trying to cater for different audiences. And my personal kind of understanding of theatre is that it is always an act of collective imagination. So what we're all doing, any time you go to the theatre, even nothing's always totally represented. There's always stylistic choices over what you have on stage, and the audience fills the rest in with their mind. And that's why I was quite interested with this work in terms of the Foley and the audio description, and not choosing what we represent and what we don't represent, because then in a way we give more power to our audiences, or that's what we were hoping. So yeah, that is important to me, that we leave the right spaces, if you see what I mean. So it's not, because obviously the other example of that would it just wouldn't be clear enough. So it's about finding which are the right spaces to leave.
So we have Celie Quest, who I happen to know is in Montreal, and says, yes, I'd enjoy both as well, a live version and a strictly animated version. I love contemporary explorations of opera, and hearing a singer while sharing the same space is a uniquely enjoyable aspect. And I also love the live experience of playing with Foley effects too. She felt the audio description reached the edge of too much, but managed a decent balance. So thank you for that, Celie.
That's really useful. Thank you very much, actually. And I think that yeah, on the edge of too much, that's a really useful feedback. And I think that once we're all together and can create a little bit more normally, then I think there's going to be more opportunities for us to hopefully reflect on that. And because it's been very odd to create a product that's then kind of finished and then we can't edit in any way. So I think that, yeah, we can definitely get that balance. We just need to know where it is. Celia, if you wouldn't mind letting us know any specific moments, if you can remember them, even if it's just rough, that would also be useful.
It's handy, isn't it? Because, oh, sorry to interrupt, because we started off initially with actually even more audio description than ended up in the piece. So hearing that even that is an edge too much, it's very interesting and useful for us to hear, because yeah, again, it's something that Ruth and I particularly are learning, and I've learned during this particular project about through Chloe. So any feedback we can have on the audio description is very handy. But that's good to know, because it gives us a wee bit more flexibility as well with the Foley and the audio description.
So what was the next question, Ruth Mariner?
So I'm gonna just ask one more, and then it would be great to get anyone else's questions, if anyone has any questions to ask us. Which is like, how involved or immersed did you become in the world of the piece and the narrative of the character?
And while you're thinking about that, I have an anonymous attendee. That's the name on the thing, which is fine. We do stress to people you do not need to give your real name to come onto the Zoom. And they say, I'm coming to this as a live concert promoter who loves experimental music. I liked the poetic quality of the text on the screen and can see this being combined with a live performance. Maybe that's something we've learned over this odd period, that live and online can be blurred. I'm less intimidated by the genre or the blurring of these than understanding the protocols of working with the politics of disability, which is why I'm sending this anonymously. We don't think it together there are any stupid questions, so please, anonymous attendee, do contact me for a private chat. Probably best after we've had our 3-week closure, because as you can imagine, I've not had a day off for some time, but we would be very, very pleased indeed to talk further. And anybody who wants to talk about the politics of disability, please feel free. It's only by talking without judging that and sharing, because everybody's got different experiences and different understandings of the social model. So yes, I think that's great. And hang on, there's one more down here. Oh, they just said me neither.
Sorry, I'm talking again. Just to say as well, half the reason for why Ruth and I at the beginning wanted to do this project is because I personally feel like there isn't enough. There aren't enough people vocal about their disabilities, especially in opera, and we particularly wanted to talk about kind of being a disabled artist in the world of classical music and opera. And it should be something that, we want this to be a doorway to discussion and for people not to feel embarrassed about not knowing certain things, because I certainly don't know much about audio description and about kind of the right way to do things. So I think we just want to make it more kind of public and more of a normal thing, rather than, especially within my sphere, I think in opera it's definitely not talked about enough. So that's kind of
the
our
same person says they thought the world it created was very beautiful. On our community advisory board, we have James Rose, who first conducted with us and 2 years ago conducted a special prom. So he's currently agent of change down at Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra. So James has really started our live music club on its journey in terms of classical music. So one of the things we have in our Join In From Home programme is some playlists that we created with Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra, I think again for the festival 2 years ago. So I won't talk about those now, but just to say, yes, I think the world of classical music is finally beginning to explore these things. We're also quite close to para orchestra. And I think that's again, so interesting what they've been doing, and so interesting again to see musicians we've known going in. And I mean, unfortunately, we lost Lynn Levitt earlier in the year and remembered her at the beginning of the festival. But seeing her go in playing her iPad with her nose alongside a classical violinist is really not a sight I ever thought I would see. So, yeah, I think there's some really exciting things going on, but we find what you're doing particularly exciting.
Thank you. Brilliant. So shall we move on to see whether anyone's got any questions for any of the panel?
There wasn't, but one I think has just popped up. Oh, somebody's saying Dada Fest in Liverpool is doing good things. Yes, Dada Fest is an international festival that takes place every 2 years and ran last week. It's quite an intense short festival compared to our own, or at least it was this year. But do check that out. They have still got links to some of the work they showed. And that, again, that may include some classical music. So I haven't got any more at the moment. So do you want to repeat your last question, Ruth Mariner, and I'll have a go at answering it while we give people a bit more time?
Yeah, definitely. What was the last one I asked? Hang on, sorry. How involved did you become within the world of the piece and the character?
Well, I felt really involved. I didn't need to put headphones on because I've got very noisy neighbours, and since we started live streaming, it's just been that opportunity not to get your own back, but not to have to worry, because as well as having a soundproof studio, I have an empty house one side and, like I say, Europop central next door. So I was able to have it nice and loud, and I found it very engaging indeed. And I think for me, because I'm a visual person as well, that was where the animation came in, that I saw the text moving, but I saw an awful lot of black. And I think the image of Bethan on the website, you know, on our program, we had a lot of very good images on the program, but I still think that was the strongest image of all of them. So I think that as well was just making me think there was some beautiful imagery in the song, in the speech, but there was also beautiful imagery that you'd already produced. And I think it was seeing how beautiful it was. You know, if I hadn't seen it, and I think again, you see the little bits of video, and that's certainly something again that we found. Zoom is great, and I think it's stretching us in all sorts of different directions. But as soon as we put clips in of our performers on stage, you go, yeah, you still need the stage and the lights and the music. And even if that's being digitally broadcast and doesn't have a live audience in the same room, there's just so much more you can do when you're on the stage. So Josh is asking, have you ever been stuck on a sound and then been surprised by what ended up giving you what you were looking for? I think this is possibly for Ruth Sullivan. On the flip side, have you ever been out and about and heard something and thought you had to find out what that was?
Yes, okay. So definitely all of the above. Sometimes you're in the Foley studio and you're trying to get the sound of something and you're searching for something, and then I'm just trying to think of a really good example, but maybe yes, I worked on a show that just came out on Amazon called Truth Seekers with Nick Frost and Simon Pegg, and it's about ghost hunting essentially. And there's, I think he calls it his electrospec. It's a device that he has, Nick Frost, which is obviously a prop that's been made. And they really wanted it to have all sorts of creaks and squeaks and buttons and rattles. But obviously, as it's a prop that was used on TV, doesn't really exist. So I had to try and grab loads of things in the studio to make it sound like it looked. So I had an old Walkman. I think I had a staple gun and some quite bizarre bits and pieces, and we got this incredible clunky sound which just worked really perfectly. But I could never have thought that's what would work, that sort of slightly bizarre collection of things that I had to hold. Yes, I often listen to sounds when I'm out and about, and I have to really try not to walk in time with the people in front of me. That's yeah.
That's not something I would ever have thought of. So we've had no more questions, points, or messages coming up. But what we're going to do is we're going to put all of the contact details on the event page along with a recording of tonight up by tomorrow. So you'll be able to play this back, follow the links. I think what we might do on the event page, Ruth Mariner, is also put your questions up so that people can email you directly with the answers. Ruth Sullivan, I think we've all been so inspired together by Foley sound. We realised how, on the one hand, we think we're doing really interesting things with vibrational sound. And when we want a sound effect, we just log on to a library and download a clip. I know, it's just shocking, isn't it? I managed to, I think I did the soundtrack for our Charlie and the Sea Monsters film about COVID. I think it took us something like 2 months to produce it, and then I knocked up the soundtrack in an evening from free sound samples. I know, it's dreadful, but don't worry, we've seen the error of our ways. Next year, I'm sure we'll be inviting you to see if you've got time to give us a workshop. We'll be exploring Foley sound. And I think we'll be exploring as our music club a great deal more about opera. We have a live music club. Well, usually once a month. At the moment, we have a live Zoom, but we just have had every kind of music apart from opera. So again, I think you've really inspired us to sort of widen our thinking. But it's just been so interesting. I know all of us could listen for hours, but we've actually run out of time completely. I'm going to come to Ruth Mariner for a final word in a minute. So I just wanted to say a huge thank you to everybody who's supported this event, to our sign language interpreter, Chris Burrow, to our captioner, Norma McKay from Global Real Time Captioning, and for funding to Arts Council England, National Lottery Community Fund, and National Lottery Emergency Fund, who've stepped in and paid for the captioning. Thank you to all of the company, Chloe, Bethan, Laura, both Ruths. We can't wait to see the live production. Next year, I think, is still going to be a bit difficult for live. So we'd love to see any other versions you come up with. And by the time you are touring it, we very much hope to have our own brand new venue open and look forward to seeing you in East London. So I'd just like to say thanks to everybody. Final word to Ruth Mariner.
Yeah, I also wanted to say thanks to everybody, and thanks to you, Ju, for having us. It's been really fantastic, actually. We've been really pleased to be part of this festival. And thanks, Josh, for your support today. And thank you, everybody, for coming. Yeah, we're always... we've always got our ears and eyes open and our presence open for feedback of any kind. So please do... yeah, please do take us up on email if there was something you felt you couldn't say in the session. But yeah, thank you. It's been really wonderful to be here and have this opportunity.
So it just leaves me to wish you a very safe trip, whether you're going to the kitchen or your next Zoom. We have our end of festival party on Zoom and YouTube on Thursday. Thank you all very much. And thank you again to Ruth and everybody from Gestalt Arts and Indus. Good night.
Thank you.